Namaste all. Thanks for coming, and we have a very good program today. And that program is still focused on Panduranga, but a little bit more focused, I guess I would say, on Bhakti associated with Panduranga, who is Krishna. So today's program is going to be excellent in terms of one or two stories that are Bhakti based. Okay? And that is from Shrimad Bhagavatam. So we'll get into it in a few minutes after our opening prayers. So if you can, sit straight and sing Om with me, and then follow me on these initial mantras. Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Gum Gurubhyo Namaha. Eim Saraswatyai Swaaha. Shreem Lakshmyai Namaha. Dum Durgaayai Namaha. Kleem Kaalikaayai Namaha. Ram Ramaaya Namaha. Kleem Krishnaaya Namaha. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu. Gurur Devo, Maheshwaraha. Gurur Saakshaat Parabrahma. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Sarvamangala Mangalye. Shive Sarvartha Sadhike. Sarvamangala Mangalye. Shive Sarvartha Sadhike. Sharanye Trayambake Gauri. Narayani Namostute. Namastasye Namastasye. Namastasye Namo Namaha. Om Shri Ram Jai Ram. Jaya Jaya Ram. Shri Ram Jaya Ram. Jaya Jaya Ram. Shri Ram Jaya Ram. Jaya Jaya Ram. Shri Ram Jaya Ram. Jaya Jaya Ram Om Shri Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Jaya Ram Om Hare Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Pandurangaya Vasudevaya. Now Shanti mantras. Sarvesham swastir bhavatu. Sarvesham shantir bhavatu. Sarvesham purnam bhavatu. Sarvesham mangalam bhavatu. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah. Sarve santu niramaya. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah. This means let everyone be happy and healthy, right? Let everyone be well. Sukhinah. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah. Sarve santu niramaya. Sarve bhadrani pashyantu. Ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Guru Om. Sadguru Maharaj ki jai. Pandharinath Maharaj ki jai. Syavar Ramachandra ki jai. Shri Krishna Bhagavan ki jai. So, Amma will teach us this Vittala Vittala bhajan. It's all this is in the description below your video. Please see the that for lyrics if you need it. We are a couple of weeks away from the great festival for Panduranga, a very holy day, which is July 12th, but we will actually hold it on July 10th Sunday, because July 12th is a weekday. We'll hold it on the 10th. In the ashram they're holding it in India, but we're also doing it here, live stream. Okay, so I'm going to hand this over to Amma, and she will teach you Vittala 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 Jai. Beautiful bhajan, simple but beautiful. Vittala 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 Jai. Vittala Vittala Jai. Panduranga Vittala Jai. Panduranga Vittala Jai. Deenabandhu Vittala Jai. Deenabandhu Vittala Jai. Karuna Sindhu Vittala Jai. Karuna Sindhu Vittala Jai. Vittala 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 Jai.
Vitala, Vitala Jai, Panduranga, Vitala Jai, Panduranga, Vitala Jai, Apat Pandava, Vitala Jai, Apat Pandava, Vitala Jai, Anatha Rakshaka, Vitala Jai, Anatha Rakshaka, Vitala Jai, Vitala, Vitala, Vitala Jai, Vitala, Vitala, Vitala Jai, Panduranga, Vitala Jai, Panduranga, Vitala Jai, Vitala, Vitala Jai, Panduranga, 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 Vitala Jai. Pandarinath Bhagavan ki Jai.
Srimad-Bhagavatam is known as Mahapurana. Okay, Mahapurana means the great Purana. In fact, it is considered as the greatest Purana of the 18 Puranas that we have. Okay, so that's what I'm about to talk. So I just want to make sure that I set some context in case people don't know. So what is this, right? There are 17 other Puranas. Bhagavata Purana, Shrimad Bhagavatam, was written as the very last Purana by sage Vedavyasa. Okay, Vedavyasa is considered Narayana himself. Okay, another aspect of Lord Narayana, who came down simply to compile all this knowledge that was only communicated verbally before he came along. Okay, not much was written down. So, for example, Kapila's Sankhya philosophy and Maitreyi and what he saw. So, all these Vedas, the 4 Vedas, they are compilations of revelations of what these great sages saw and that they were teaching to their disciples. Sage Vedavyasa, Lord Narayana himself came as Badar Narayana, that's his other name, and compiled these 4 Vedas, which inside of it contains the 108 Upanishads. And you already know the glory of Upanishads because we've talked about some aspects of the Upanishads where we talk about Atma and Paramatma and the 5 sheets and states of being and all this very deep philosophy, logically based and whatnot. So in any event, so sage Vedavyasa comes in and does all this, but he also writes another body of work called Brahma Sutras, okay, aphorisms to explain what the heck the Vedas are saying, because he understood that people may misinterpret any inconsistencies that people may read in, because there's bound to be some inconsistencies because different people, different sages saw their revelation, okay, and God is infinite, so you'll see different aspects. It's like touching an elephant in different places, and you find that, oh, the elephant is like this. It's true, but it's not the full picture. So Brahma Sutras was written to try and deconflict and also to explain how to read the Vedas and how to understand it. Okay, so he wrote that too. So he compiled all this, classified them, okay, and then he wrote the Brahma Sutras to explain what to do, how to read this. But then he also wrote the Mahabharata, right? 100,000 verses. Just imagine that, 100,000 verses telling this human story in every aspect, anything that they can do well according to dharma, and anything that they can do by way of adharma. Okay, every single aspect of human life, human condition, human psyche is explored in the Mahabharata. Okay, it's a long, long tree of people that are described. So Mahabharata, I think some people in India and others have written a chart of who is a father to whom and who is the cousin to whom, who is the nephew of whom. Big chart. Mahabharata is very, very complex. As I said, 100,000 stanzas, within which 700 stanzas are the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so inside of Mahabharata, there's Bhagavad Gita. So all this enormous bodies of work Veda Vyasa has done, right? Compiled the Vedas, which has Upanishads in it, Brahma Sutras, and then the Mahabharata, and then 17 Puranas. Okay, Puranas are stories, usually starting with the story of creation, how that happened, who was responsible, when did it happen, and all these sorts of things. And there's Garuda Purana. There are 17, as I said. To name just a few, there is Shrimad Bhagavatam, which is our subject today. But there is Vishnu Purana, there is Skanda Purana, there is Brahma Purana, there is Garuda Purana, right? There is Shiva Purana, and on, 17 of them. Okay, so he had done all this work. Okay, and he was still depressed. So I'll come back to that point, that story, in a few minutes. I've told this story before. Many of you already know it, but it's still good to hear it again so you understand what the point of that story is. So now you come to a different story within the Srimad Bhagavatam. That is, once upon a time, Narada, the great sage Narada, right, mind-born son of Brahma, our creator. Okay, Brahma, the creator, created many mind-born sons. Okay, Narada was one of them in a particular kalpa. Okay, remember, kalpa is a period of time. Remember, the time actually rotates in our system. It's circular. You have the golden age known as Satya or Krita Yuga. Then you have Treta Yuga. Then you have Dwapara. And then you have Kali Yuga. We are in Kali Yuga right now. So right after this, okay, Kalki comes towards the end of Kali Yuga. Then there's a dissolution and we go right back to Satya Yuga. Okay, in case people are confused about that. There are all kinds of charts that say Kali Yuga goes to Dwapara. No, Kali Yuga goes to Satya Yuga. Okay, again, okay, the cycle starts. So, where I was going with this is all these yugas, when they rotate several times, you have a kalpa. Okay, that kalpa is when Narada was coming and into the foothills of the Himalayas. Foothills of the Himalayas is Haridwar, and above that is Rishikesh. If you ascend a little bit, so he was in Rishikesh. As he was traveling, he saw that there were the other 4 mind-born sons of Creator Brahma. And these are some of the greatest highly realized souls ever. These are the Kumaras. So those are the 4 ever-living masters known as Sanaka, Sanandana. Well, you're confusing me now. Yeah, you're right. Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanat Kumara and Sanat Sujata. Those 4. Okay, Amma is right. Okay, so these 4 mind-born sons. So Kumara, they always look like young boys, but they're actually boys forever. Okay, Brahma created them so that they can go and create the population. Instead of that, as soon as they were born, they went to meditate on the highest form of God and said, we are not going to populate anything. We are going to remain as brahmacharis and we are going to continue in yogic meditation and the like. So when Narada came, they happened to be in Rishikesh and they saw Narada, who is really their own brother, but in a different kalpa, right? So what happened is they invited Narada to come and sit with them, to eat with them, and so on. And as they were doing that, they observed Narada is not all right. Okay, sage Narada, the great saint, okay, who was born right from the time that he was born, his job and his passion was to go in all the realms and to teach about the bhakti to God, okay, to devotion to God. So this same Narada is always happy, but somehow he's not looking happy that day. So they asked him, what happened to you, Narada? You are not looking like your normal self. You look a little down. You look depressed. You look sad. Why? So Narada says, it's because I had gone to Mathura Vrindavan, okay, where Krishna, Lord Krishna's avatar was there. And everybody is usually happy there. Everybody is in joy. Everybody, sometimes people are in a trance due to their devotion to God. Okay? It's not an unhappy place. It's a very happy place. People go there. They delight in the fact that Krishna played there. Krishna showed his leelas there. So this is the kind of place Vrindavan is. And yet, when I went there, I saw a young lady who looked very, very sad. She was crying. She saw me. She called me to her and asked for my help because she was in great stress. She was crying and crying and crying. So when she asked for my help, I said, what's the matter? She said, look beside me on this side and that side. These two are my sons and they're sick, they're old and about to die. Please, can you do something about that? So when Narada inquired, who are those two old men beside her? She said, my name is Bhakti. Okay? So she is Bhakti or devotion herself, the Devi to Bhakti. My name is Bhakti. These two old sick people, old boys, are actually my sons. Narada was stunned to hear that. These two old people are old men, are your sons and you are so young? How is that possible? That goes against everything. So she explained that I am Bhakti and these two are my boys. And we came up, Radha is going to be very happy to hear this now. We came up through Karnataka. They were born to me in Karnataka, our state, by the way. And this is in Bhagavatam. I'm not making this up. This is in Shrimad Bhagavatam. So they were born to me in Karnataka, where they were vibrant. They were great and full of vitality. And as we traveled through Maharashtra people don't get upset with me. It's just in the Puranas. And then we went up to Gujarat. And as we went up and up, by the time we got to Vrindavan, which is where our destination was, to reach that trance state in devotion to Krishna, it turns out that these two boys had gotten sick and old. And they're now about to die. So Narada says, that's very interesting. Who are these two boys? What are their names? She says, on this side, my boy is jnana, knowledge. Okay? And on this side, my boy is vairagya, detachment from material things. So jnana and vairagya, knowledge, detachment. Those are my two boys. And by the time I got here, they're about to die. Please do something. Oh, great Narada. So I thought, and I decided the best way to help them is to read from the holy books of the Vedas. Okay? So I opened up the books and started reading right from the beginning, and I read as much as I could. Every day we would do this, and the more I read, the more young they became, and the more healthy they became, the more vibrant they became. But as soon as I stopped, they went back to again becoming weak and sick and old. So I tried this a few times, and every time the same thing happened. I read the Vedas and they come alive. And I close the books and I'm about to leave, again it goes back to the same thing. And again, Bhakti Devi would again cry. So I didn't have any answers. Now I am very sad because I like to help people. That's what I do. I want to put people on the spiritual path, and yet I could not help bhakti, jnana or vairagya. And jnana and vairagya are about to die, and I have no answers. So he asks this question of the Kumaras, the 4 Kumaras. And he says, if you have any answers, please let me know so that I can help them. So these boys, they in unison say, that's a simple answer. Okay, what you should do is call them from Mathura Vrindavan, call them to the Himalayas where we are, okay, at the foothills of the great Himalayas. Yeah, and then we'll sit here at the bank of the Ganga, and you do 7 days of reading of Shrimad Bhagavatam, not the Vedas. Okay, Vedas are dry. They have ritualistic things that you can do. Okay, for good things to happen in your life here. So if you don't have any children, there are pujas for that, or sacrifices. You want more wealth, there are pujas or fire sacrifices. So all these rituals are there for all kinds of problems and needs that you have. On the other hand, you have the Upanishads, Vedanta, that talks about your oneness with God, how soul is eternal and all this. But what's lacking here is pure, untainted devotion, absolute devotion to God. So it's missing that juice. So by you reading the Vedas, okay, they are not getting that permanent opening of the heart with devotional love for God. That's the problem. And Narada says, yeah, you're saying Bhagavata Saptaha, I've heard of it. The issue I have is that if I have to do it, I have to invite a lot of guests and I have to give them food after, maybe each chapter or something like that. And I have to, put a proper housing or tent or something above that venue, so that if it rains and or the sun is too hot, I have to protect them. That's what they expect. And as you know, I'm a free bird. I go all over the place. I don't stay in one place. I have no house. I have no money. I have nothing other than this tanpura, the tambura that I carry. By singing God's name, I travel everywhere. And I have nothing to organize this with. Saptaha means 7 days of reading Bhagavatam, okay, or telling Bhagavat stories. So I have nothing. So what do you suggest? They say you don't need a tent or anything like that. Just sit on the bank of Ganga, invite as many people as you want. They will come and sit outdoors, the grand outdoors. Okay, the sky is the tent. If people get thirsty, Ganga water is here. They can bathe, right? Whatever they want. And there are trees and bushes all over the place. They can eat fruits. They can eat berries. That's how it's going to go. Trust us on this one and go forward. So Narada does. What he does is he invites those 3, right? Bhakti, Jnana and Vairagya to come and sit and hear Bhagavatam. And at that point, Sutta Puranika, this is a great Sutta Puranika that also shows up, who tells the story of the greatness of Satyanarayana Puja. He is the same Sutta Puranika who also sits there and right from the beginning to end. He does the 7 days almost non-stop of Shrimad Bhagavatam. Shrimad Bhagavatam includes how everything was created. As I said before, all Puranas have that mostly. And it talks about, as I mentioned, a long time ago, we did a live stream on this, about Vedic time dimensions and space, right? Giant, from the micro time all the way to gigantic times of Brahma and then Vishnu. Same thing with space, the different realms that we talk about. Some of them are visible to us, observable universe, but a majority of them are not observable with these two eyes or these sensory organs. So that's how it goes. So all that is covered in Bhagavatam. Narada Bhakti Sutras is covered in Bhagavatam. And then the 9 types of or modes of devotion known as Navavida Bhakti is covered in Bhagavatam, and so on. In fact, Sage Vedavyasa says, when he actually wrote it, he said, I'm writing this in order to inspire devotion to God. So this is what happened, and all the audiences, okay, everybody who was gathered there, including these 3, they were in a trance. The entire time their heart opened up, they were in a trance, and they didn't even know where they were sitting. Nobody needed any fruits from any trees, no food, no water. They just were transported into a different place. This is exactly what happened to King Parikshita in a different story. I'm not going to go there now. That's also in Bhagavatam, by the way. King Parikshita's story and how he heard the Bhagavatam from sage Shuka. So in any event, so that solved their problem. In other words, it uplifted Jnana and Vairagya. It uplifted, the devotion uplifted and made them permanently live, that is knowledge and detachment. Okay, that is the beauty of bhakti. That's the reason I wanted to tell you this story. Jai Jai Ram
Krishna Hare, Jai Jai Ram Krishna Hare, Jai Jai Panduranga Hare Hare, Jai Jai Panduranga Hare Hare, Jai Jai Ram Krishna Hare, Jai Jai Ram Krishna Hare, Devaki Nandana Deva Devottama, Devaki Nandana Deva Devottama, Mahavishnu Avatare, Vishnu Avatare, Jai Jai Ram Krishna Hare, Jai Jai Ram Krishna Hare, Purusha Paramatma Shri Hare, Parama Purusha Paramatma Shri Hare, Pavana Purnavatare, Pavana Purnavatare, Jai Jai Ram Krishna Hare, Jai Jai Ram Krishna Hare, Vela Manusha Vigraha Keshava, Vela Manusha Vigraha Keshava, Gopala Lila Avatare, Gopala Lila Avatare, Jai Jai Ram Krishna Hare, Jai Jai Ram Krishna Hare, Danava Mardana Keshava Vamana, Danava Mardana Keshava Vamana, Yamuna Tira Vihare, Yamuna Tira Vihare, Jai Jai Ram Krishna Hare, Jai Jai Ram Krishna Hare, Jai Jai Panduranga Hare Hare, Jai Bhajana Yoganuta Bhakta Vatsala Bhajana Yoganuta Bhakta Vatsala Bhaya Sankata Hare Bhaya Sankata Hare Jai Jai Rama Krishna Hare Jai Jai Rama Krishna Hare Dasa Keshavanuta Dasharate Rama Dasa Keshavanuta Dasharate Rama Krishna Premavatare Krishna Premavatare Jai Jai Rama Krishna Hare Jai Jai Rama Krishna Hare Rama Krishna Hare Jai Jai Panduranga 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 Hare Ram Krishna Hare Jai Jai Panduranga Hare Ram Krishna Hare Jai Jai Panduranga Hare Panduranga Hare Panduranga Hare Jai.
In this story, as I said before, sage Vedavyasa, I said I would come back to it, so I'm back to it now, had written all these things. Tremendous body of work. Who else but a great person, great incarnation of Lord Narayana could actually understand the Vedas, classify it properly, and then write Brahma Sutras to tell you how to read all the things and deconflict the information that the different sages saw, the revelations, right? And how to exactly do the rituals, how to exactly interpret the Upanishads and all. Even though he did all that, it was still difficult for people in Kali Yuga to actually interpret it, which is why we then had the Acharyas, Shankaracharya, Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, Vallabhacharya, Nimbarkacharya, and whatnot. And there are many other people who have written commentaries on not just the Vedas, but Brahma Sutras and the Bhagavad Gita. So he had done all that, and then he wrote the, as I said, 100,000. It's really phenomenal just to even think about it. 100,000 verses of the Mahabharata, and exploring everything from the human psyche to what is dharma, what is adharma, how to behave, how not to behave, through the story itself, because there were every kind of people doing every kind of sin possible, and every kind of people who are resisting doing sins and resisting judging people, resisting all the temptations and trying to do dharma and trying to achieve something higher, namely the grace of God, etc. And there are stories about how people have fallen from the path temporarily, used their yogic powers, and then gotten back on the track. So all kinds of stories are there in the Mahabharata itself. So it's all this amazing work. And then he wrote those 17 Puranas. I listed some of those before. And he was still depressed that humanity was not understanding what he was even saying. Nobody has the patience to read it, reflect on it, understand it. All this teaching should not go to the waste. And somehow I'm unable to open up people's hearts through all this teaching. So he was thinking that and just reflecting on where he went wrong, okay, even though he put in all this work. At that time, Sage Narada, the same Sage Narada that I talked to you about, he comes there and asks Vedavyasa, why are you so depressed? You've done all this incredible amount of work, great deep teachings, right? But why are you so still depressed? This is more than any man can achieve, right? All that knowledge is here. He says, I don't know. It feels like it's insufficient. I feel empty inside. It feels like I cannot reach people, okay? And so Narada reflects on it for a minute and he says, the reason for that is because all this stuff that you've written so far is not focused on bhakti. It's not focused on transcendental, okay, untinged, untainted, okay, bhakti or devotion to God. Okay, it's all dry. That is the reason you need to write about bhakti. Right? So then he relates a story of his own life. Narada relates his own life story to sage Vedavyasa so he can derive inspiration from that. So he says, let me tell you, you see me as Narada, the mind-born son of creator Brahma, right? But let me tell you who I was in my previous life. In my previous life, I was a young boy in an ashram, and my mother was a widow, but she was a servant and at a Maharishi's or a yogi's place. She used to serve that yogi and make a living that way. She used to do his laundry as he went off to do meditation and different things for different people, and read the scriptures, taught students and whatnot. So she was the caretaker. She did the laundry, she did the cooking, she did the cleaning. Her responsibility was to make sure the ashram was in good working order for that sage. That was her job. She got paid for it, and that was her means of living. And so Narada says, I was her son with no direction. I could not go to school. We were too poor. I could not learn anything from the Vedas or scriptures or grammar or mathematics or anything like that. So I was basically around the ashram doing this and that. But he says, my whole life changed during one monsoon season. In monsoon in India, a lot of heavy rains happen. So it was very difficult to travel during those times. So we still have this tradition during monsoon season. Monks from every order basically stay in one place to perform their normal austerities, normal studies, normal satsangs. Okay, our own Swamiji of Kashimat does that. There are a lot of Kashimats all over India, especially in South India. But when Chaturmas, that is 4 months of monsoon, that's called Chaturmas, they stay in one place. Okay, so it turned out that in this hermitage, that there were a group of very highly realized masters who came and spent 4 months in that hermitage, in that ashram. Okay, and on a daily basis, they would, what Narada in his previous life would observe is that they would get up very early in the morning, take a dip in the lake or river, and do their prayers, right? Do Gayatri, and then sit for meditation, and then have pure food, and then go into discussion, satsang, of what this is saying, what that is saying, and they reflect on it, and they have these spiritual discussions. And when it came to stories of God, Leelas of God, when it came time to discuss the abode of God, the Saguna form of God, especially Krishna, they would go into a trance. All of them would just go into a different space. And this boy also started listening to that, observing them and kind of following them around. He would also go into a trance. His heart would be full of joy, full of Lord, right? Full of Krishna's grace. And he would also go into the trance. And the sages noticed that. The Maharishis noticed that this boy is fascinated and interested and completely engaged, and he is also going into a trance with them. So they were so pleased that they decided to offer him part of their food. This is called prasad. So whenever they got the food, afternoon food or evening food, they wouldn't finish all of them. They would save some for the boy from their plate. But because it was touched by the holy people, sacred people, we have a tradition where that prasad, if it's partaken by the disciple, they would get the blessings and the grace of those gurus. They knew that, and they would offer that to him. He would eat those leftover portions from their plates, and he would grow ever stronger in his spiritual mannerisms and what he was able to think through, right, even as a boy. So within 4 months, this amazing journey of this boy doing this, that, and the other thing, playing around the ashram and wasting away his life, to being with these great holy men for 4 months, absorbing what they're saying as much as he could, eating the prasad that they gave him, and then going into trance whenever they were talking about God. So this rubbed off through osmosis, and he was just uplifted to a point that when it came time for them to leave, okay, they said goodbye to everybody. Our Chaturmasya is done. The 4 months is done. We now, as monks, we now have to continue our travels. We are required that we don't stay in one place more than 3 days. Otherwise, we'll start getting attached. So for those reasons, we have to move on. So they thanked everybody and they moved on. They gave their blessing to the boy. Within a few days, this boy was missing them like anything, because he was getting so much of spiritual exposure, and now it came to a dead halt. Nothing. So several days went by, a few weeks went by, and he was just getting restless. It so happened that his mother, who was working in the field, got bit by a snake, and she died from that venom. So now this boy decides, I have nothing to do in the ashram. I don't have a mom, okay, and I'm not really that friendly with this particular sadhu who lives here. Now I must go and do what the other sages are doing. They're traveling to holy places. They're seeking God. That's what I have to do. So he goes from one holy place, one pilgrimage center, to another temple, to another one, seeking God. God was pleased with this boy and decided that he was going to show him his grace. So only momentarily, when he was in meditation, this boy saw the incredible light, incredible form of Krishna in his heart. I'm deliberately pointing a little bit to the right here because that's where the sacred heart is, not on this side. It's on the right hand side. So he saw that for just a few seconds, and he was just overwhelmed. To see God is not an easy thing. And just as quickly as it came, it also left in a matter of few seconds. And then again he felt completely empty. Okay? Now he got the taste of what it is like to get the darshan of God. And now the boy is in distress, right? He wants the same darshan back, but he doesn't know how to do it. So he goes again, redoubles his effort to go from this temple to that temple to here to there to there, circling back to the same temple to see if he can get that same experience. Nothing doing. So after several years of just going here and there and here, he is so frustrated and tired. At which point he hears the voice of God, okay, known as Ashari Ravani. So he hears that, where Lord Krishna says, you will not see me in this lifetime again. Okay? I gave you a taste of what it is like so that you can continue your austerities, your spiritual practices, your bhajans, mantras. All this is a process, because I cannot show you myself again because you are not ready in this life. Okay? So while Narada, that boy, He's now a young man and so on. He is very disappointed to hear that, but he doesn't give up. He says, I must see God. Okay? So God says to him, in the next life, providing you do the kind of devotion, right? Absolute devotion, absolute dedication, absolute gratitude, and go to satsangs, do all these things, do your practices, okay, as honestly and as openly and as genuinely as you can. Do that, and in the next life, I promise you, I will be with you and you will be with me inseparably. And so that young man takes a lot of courage from that, okay, encouragement. And yes, he dedicates himself to doing exactly that, continuously thinking of God. He becomes, in essence, a Haridasa, okay, the servant of God. And eventually he gives up his body. Remember, this is a story that Narada is telling Vedavyasa about his own past life. So Vedavyasa says, then what happened? He says, at that point, after I left my body, I guess I must have been ready, because in my next life, I was born from Creator Brahma, not of a man and a woman and all that. I was mind born, just like the Kumaras are, right? I was mind born from Creator Brahma. Okay, and right from the beginning, I knew I was going to be a Haridasa, a Sant, a saint. Okay, there was no question in my mind. The Sanaka, Sanandana, those Kumaras, the 4 Kumaras, they had a job to do. My father Brahma created them in a different kalpa to go populate different worlds. Nobody told me that. Everybody knew all along why I was born. That is to spread the holy name of God, to spread devotion that I prepared for in my past life. There is nothing greater than devotion, O Vyasa. There is nothing greater than devotion. That is something that you must write about. Okay? Until that is done, you will always be incomplete. You will be unsatisfied. You will be purposeless. Do that. So sage Vedavyasa doesn't immediately write Shrimad Bhagavatam. He had to reflect on what it is that sage Narada said. Okay. So he did his own austerities according to how Narada described per his previous life. Right? I must prepare myself before I understand fully what this bhakti is. Remember, I said Vedavyasa is a incarnation of Narayana. So he doesn't need to be told by Narada or anything like that. This is all drama that we call as Leela. It's just a story to help us get inspired. Vedavyasa doesn't need any of this. But still, to show the way, he ended up doing some of the same austerities to prepare himself to write about Lord Krishna, to write the story of devotion and the benefits of devotion. Mahatmya, it's called. Okay. So that's how that story was written. So the reason why I wanted to tell you this is because Bhagavatam is an ode to that great devotion to God. It is not devotion that is opposite of anything, nor is it conditional. It is beyond all that. It is love of God without any strings attached, with no opposites. It is in itself a thing. Okay, it's absolute love for God, absolute gratitude for God, absolute admiration for God. So I was thinking, as I was reading this story, why should we even talk about any of this, right? If you look at how exact and mathematical the universe, the known universe is, right? If the sun doesn't come up, or the moon is too close or too far, or the earth moves a little bit closer into the sun, or if an asteroid hits us, all these things, there are a lot of things that can happen in open space. And yet, the conditions of us being here have been met. And all the things that we need to survive, thrive, do well, and think about the future, be self-aware, remember the past, and try to raise ourselves from our current condition. That's also within our capability. In other words, consciousness, awareness, that's all within our grasp. Okay? To understand what is dharma, what is adharma, right? All that, that's, and the whole thing about nitya, anitya, viveka, nitya, anitya, viveka, that's all within our grasp. So all these things God has given us. Why wouldn't you have admiration? Why wouldn't you have gratitude? Right? So sometimes we need to sit back and think. These are all elements of bhakti indeed. All that is explored in Srimad-Bhagavatam. And whenever sage Shuka, the son of Vedavyasa, would talk about Srimad-Bhagavatam, he himself would go into a trance. Okay, and it is said that he himself would be in Krishna's abode known as Goloka Dhama and would transport all his listeners to the same place. That is the power of bhakti, and that is the power that is explored in Srimad Bhagavatam. I hope you enjoyed those two stories, and I'll read your comments before I jump into doing Panduranga Ashtakam. We'll do that again, but we'll do it a little faster so that we're not going way over time. It's about 1 hour now. So let me read your comments, if that's okay. All right. So I have some Telugu comments which I definitely cannot read. But I appreciate whoever is listening in. Thank you for coming on. And so the comments are, Lorena is here. She's saying, Namaste, everybody. Thank you, Lorena. Namaste to you. Thanks for joining us regularly. We appreciate it. And then Dayaram is here. Dayaram and Padma are here. Namaste. Namaste to you too. And thanks for joining us. Geeta is here. Namaste, everyone. Munsanguno. And then Geeta, thanks for joining us. Amgal Geeta. Then Shekhar Rao is here. Looking forward to a continuation of the prior session on Panduranga Ashtakam, which was very enlightening, especially your interpretation and then your father's. Thank you. I'm not going to go into describing anything today. We're just going to practice the shlokas, okay, the Ashtaka, so that you can practice it for yourself, so that when it comes time for July 12th, Ashadha Shuddha Ekadashi, you should be able to be reasonably fluent with this. If you have the time, please practice that. That's the intention that I have anyway. So then, okay, so Lorena is saying to the sound and all, it sounds good. Okay, it sounds great. And then Mirabai and Krishnadas are here. Namaste. Yes, we can see and hear everything. Okay, good. Thank you so much for joining us. And then whoever is writing in Telugu, I couldn't get your name, but thank you for joining us as well. And we appreciate it. I'm assuming this is from India. And then Lorena says, it is impressive, mind-blowing. I believe that the difference in the stream of the stories are related with the way in which the unfolding of creation occurs, but I am not certain. So I believe that the differences in the stream of the stories are related with the way in which the unfolding of creation occurs. I'm not entirely certain what you mean, Lorena. Please clarify if you can. But my intention was to show that that until bhakti was added in the portfolio of sage Vedavyasa's writings, he felt incomplete, that his avatar itself was incomplete. Okay, to show that, and to show that Bhagavatam is an ode to that transcendental devotion to God. So I hope that that message was clear. So then Leela is here. Namaskar, Amma, Shyam, Radha. This time, luckily, I got the link. I am happy to see you all and attend the satsang. Thank you, Leela, for joining us. It's very early in India.
God bless you.
And then Amma says, God bless you. And then Lorena says, beautiful key message in the story of sage Narada, very inspiring. I agree. I found it very inspiring as well. So, Mirabai Krishnadas, they say, Namaste, thank you for opening our hearts with the path of devotion. We are grateful. Our love to you, Mother and Radha. So Lorena is saying, we all feel incomplete without bhakti. Bhakti sustains our life. Sankta, tuchang. So thank you, Lorena. One thing I wanted to say is that people often underestimate this kind of devotion to God. The reason for that is because most of the swamis out there, they teach about how God is the only thing that exists, and that the correct path and the most advanced path is the path of Advaita. Okay? That's probably right. Let's put that aside for a second. But what it does in effect is it diminishes the power of bhakti, okay? The power of devotion. Remember, my father used to talk about jnana yukta bhakti, right? That is to say, with the more you know about God, that's knowledge, the more you know, the more you love, the more you love, the more you know. So that's a symbiotic relationship that goes on. So what this is trying to say is that if you feel, okay, one of the questions, let me put it this way, one of the questions that comes up now and then, I hear that from people. Just a couple of days ago, I did a puja. A couple of days ago on Friday night. One of the questions that came up from one of the gentlemen there is, okay, fine, okay, how do you develop devotion to God, right? Something that you have not seen, something that you have not really known personally. How do you develop any kind of devotion? The first step is to be around people who have devotion. That's called satsang, okay? That's called being around a guru, for example, so that they can inspire you. Second thing is read inspiring stories from the scriptures of people, saints, sages, who have achieved those things that you intend to achieve, just like in anything else, right? Third is you have to reflect and practice what you have learned, so that, again, if it's all intellectual, there's no heart. So you can read and read, it only goes here. The question is, are you reading inspiring things that will open up your heart? Okay, those are all basic essential things. But beyond that, this is a key point. Please keep this in mind. You cannot love something deeply unless you feel that it's yours. This keyboard is mine. Radha, please don't touch it. This is mine. I have this kind of attachment and love for this keyboard because I feel it is mine. Until that feeling that God is yours comes to you, you cannot really have that kind of love and attachment to God. Okay? So you have to make a mental transformation as you learn more about God. You will be inspired, no doubt. But there comes a point where there's a switch, where you feel that God is mine. That is the key for all the saints. Okay, all the saints have gone through that one little transformation, that God is mine and I am God's. As soon as that happens, now you are in a transcendental love. How do you develop love for God? Initially it's superficial and maybe psychology related, okay, mentally related, but it's not really through the heart. It's not through the instinct. So this is a key point I wanted to share with you. So everybody down in the description, you're seeing the lyrics for Mahayoga Pithe, Panduranga Ashtakam. So we'll do that now. Mahayoga Pithe तटे भीमरत्यां वरं पुण्डरीकाय धातुं मुनीन्द्रैः समागत्य तिष्ठं तमानन्दकन्दं परब्रह्मलिङ्गं भजे पाण्डुरङ्गं परब्रह्मलिङ्गं भजे पाण्डुरङ्गम् तडिद्वाससं नीलमेघावभासं रमामन्दिरं सुन्दरं चित्प्रकाशं वरं त्विष्टिकायां समन्यस्तपादं परब्रह्मलिङ्गं भजे पाण्डुरङ्गं परब्रह्मलिङ्गं भजे पाण्डुरङ्गं प्रमाणं भवाब्धेरिदं मामकानां नितम्बं कराभ्यां धृतो येन तस्मात् विधातुर्वसत्यै धृतो नाभिकोशः परब्रह्मलिङ्गं भजे पाण्डुरङ्गं परब्रह्मलिङ्गं भजे पाण्डुरङ्गं स्फुरत्कौस्तुभालङ्कृतं कण्ठदेशे श्रियाजुष्टकेयूरकं श्रीनिवासं शिवं शान्तमिढ्यं वरं लोकपालं परब्रह्मलिङ्गं भजे पाण्डुरङ्गं परब्रह्मलिङ्गं भजे पाण्डुरङ्गं शरश्चन्द्रबिम्बाननं चारुहासं लसत्कुण्डलाक्रान्त गण्डस्थलाङ्गं जपारागबिम्बाधरं कञ्जनेत्रं परब्रह्मलिङ्गं भजे पाण्डुरङ्गं परब्रह्मलिङ्गं भजे पाण्डुरङ्गं किरीटोज्ज्वलं सर्वदिक्प्रान्तभागं सुरैरर्चितं दिव्यरत्नेन नर्घे त्रिभङ्गाकृतिं बर्हमाल्यावतंसं त्रिभङ्गाकृतिं बर्हमाल्यावतंसं परब्रह्मलिङ्गं भजे पाण्डुरङ्गं परब्रह्मलिङ्गं भजे पाण्डुरङ्गं विभुं वेणुनादं चरन्तं दुरन्तं स्वयं लीलया गोपवेशं दधानं गवां वृन्दकानन्दनं चारुहासं परब्रह्मलिङ्गं भजे पाण्डुरङ्गं परब्रह्मलिङ्गं भजे पाण्डुरङ्गम् अजं रुक्मिणी प्राण सञ्जीवनन्तं परन्धाम कैवल्यमेकं तुरीयम् प्रसन्नं प्रसन्नार्तिहं देवदेवं परब्रह्मलिङ्गं भजे पाण्डुरङ्गं परब्रह्मलिङ्गं भजे पाण्डुरङ्गं स्तवं पाण्डुरङ्गस्य वैपुण्यदं ये पठन्ते कचित्तेन भक्त्या च नित्यं भवाम्भोनिधिं तेऽपि तीर्थान्तकाले हरेरालयं शाश्वतं प्राप्नुवन्ति हरेरालयं शाश्वतं प्राप्नुवन्ति परब्रह्मलिङ्गं भजे पाण्डुरङ्गं परब्रह्मलिङ्गं भजे पाण्डुरङ्गम् पंढरीनाथ महाराज की जय, सद्गुरु महाराज की जय. As I mentioned before in our previous live stream, this beautiful Ashtaka was composed by none other than the great Adi Shankaracharya. Okay, so he is the one who made famous the Advaita philosophy. He didn't invent it; he made it famous, and he really spread that throughout India, the Advaita philosophy. That is to say, there is only God. Everything that we see as different, okay, is really Maya. This same philosopher, the high master that he was, in his later years, he wrote things like Bhaja Govindam that are all devotional oriented, okay, not the dry Vedas. So he went through the same journey in some ways, you can say, as Veda Vyasa himself, right? So all the philosophies, all the intellectual things were already done by sage Veda Vyasa, just like Shankaracharya did. And then later on, he came down to this. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate, Bhaja Govindam. Samprapte sannihite kale, samprapte sannihite kale, samprapte nahi rakshati डुक्रं करणे, नहीं रक्षति, नहीं रक्षति डुक्रं करणे, नहीं रक्षति डुक्रं करणे. भज गोविन्दं, भज गोविन्दं, गोविन्दं भज मूढमते. So here you can see that the great Shankaracharya, after he convinced everybody about the oneness, there's only God, okay, and there's nothing else. Everything else that you see as different, okay, the difference between everything else, right, between me and between her and that object and this animal and that tree, everything as being different is due to Maya. He convinced basically all of India with that philosophy. The same Shankaracharya in his later years said to everybody, the same people that he taught, he said, the best thing for humanity is to do bhaja govindam, sing the name and worship and praise Govinda, God. Govinda is another name for Krishna. Bhaja govindam, bhaja govindam. He says it 3 times, not just once, to emphasize the point. Govindam bhaja mudhamate. So instead of telling people, he's in effect telling people, but he's saying, oh my idiotic, stupid, dull mind. Okay? So sing the name of God, oh dull mind, oh stupid mind. Why? He says, samprapte sannihite kale. That means imminent is the time when you will die. Okay? Imminent is that time. It's just around the corner. Nobody knows, right? Nobody knows when they're going to die. Shankaracharya is making that point. It's right around the corner. It's imminent. Samprapte sannihite kale. So that time is very close, right? So he says, nahi nahi rakshati dukran karane. That means nahi nahi means never, not ever, right? No way. Are these high philosophies, intellectual exercises, grammatical parsing of the scriptures, right? And debates, ongoing debates about what this means and what that means, and the logical conclusion that you can draw from this philosophy or that phrase. Those intellectual exercises and grammatical parsing and debating, those things will never save you. Okay? Rakshati means that. Nahi nahi rakshati. Those parsing, okay? The debates will never save you. Nahi nahi rakshati dukran karane. Dukran karane means grammar, grammatical parsing, okay? Which is the correct grammar, this and that. So a lot of Indian scholars were involved in a lot of parsing. He himself was involved in parsing in his younger days and did a whole lot of debates. So his disciples were all like that. They were all ready to go to debate anybody and to defeat them. So he needed to tell people that that is not, it's a thing. It's scholarly, it's academic, but it's not going to save you. So, nahi nahi rakshati dukran karane, nahi nahi rakshati dukran karane. So what to do then? Bhaja govindam, bhaja govindam, govindam bhaja mudhamate, mudhamate. So isn't it beautiful? Right? The greatest of Advaitins out there, that, Swami Vivekananda's lineage is like that, the Vedanta Society, the Ramakrishna mission, and Chinmaya mission, and self-realization fellowship. They're all somehow linked to, if you go back and back and back, it's linked to Shankaracharya in so many ways. Okay? So, here he is saying, if you want to be saved, sing the name and worship the name of God, Govinda. And then he goes on with his other philosophies. We've done this before, so I'm not going to do all that. The only thing maybe I'll touch on. Satsangatve nisangatvam nisangatve nirmohatvam nirmohatve nischalatatvam nischalatatve jivan mukti bhaja govindam bhaja govindam govindam bhaja mudhamate mudhamate. So in this stanza, in this verse, he is saying that always keep up with satsang. Always keep up with satsang. Always go to satsang. Remember I told you about the story of Narada and how he went. So always keep up the holy company, sacred company of those type of people who are realized, who are engaged in doing these types of things to uplift themselves in service of God. So when you have that kind of satsang, that is the correct way for you to develop all the other benefits. Satsangatve nisangatvam. So you will develop this vairagya, detachment. Remember I told you about the two sons, Dana and Vairagya, right, of bhakti. You will develop that vairagya, detachment. Satsangatve nisangatvam. So you will develop detachment to the wrong things and actually attachment to the right things. It's implied. So nisangatve nirmohatvam. Okay. So you will find, first of all, this nisangatve means you will disassociate with the wrong company. Okay, and nisangatve nirmohatvam. So nirmohatva means detachment, right? Same thing as vairagya, or at least close to it. So nirmohatve nischalatatvam. Nischalatatva means your firm foundation in the philosophy of God. Okay, in how things are. You completely established in that, unwavering, and you may have a bunch of doubters and debaters and so on who may try to confuse you, but you are not going to waver, because satsanga equals nissanga, will lead to nissanga. Nissanga then leads to nirmoha, detachment, to the wrong things. Okay, nirmoha leads to that kind of philosophy that is unshakable. Okay, your purpose is unshakable. And then nirmohatve nirmohatve nischalatatvam nischalatatve jivan mukti. Bold claim, right? Bold claim by Shankaracharya. He says if you are detached, okay, from material things and you are attached to the right things, that is your spiritual path and your God. Okay, so that bold claim is you will reach mukti or liberation while you live. You don't have to wait until you die and then you go somewhere. It's not that. We've always known that, I think, in this group. So, right? Nischalatatve jivan mukti. So nobody can knock you off your track. You will be deeper and deeper into that, and that same detachment will end up leading you to Jivan Mukti, liberation while you live, spiritual liberation, okay, freedom. So it's a wonderful thing. So this is what I wanted to highlight today, the power of bhakti, the power of prayer, the power of gratitude towards what all God has given us, and told through the stories of Shrimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so I see that there are a few more comments. I'll look at that and then we'll wrap up if it's okay. All right, so Prasanna is here, Radha. Namaskara Mataji avarigu. If I can read this properly, please bear with me. Shamananavarigu, Hagu, Sahodari, Radhamanavarigu. Thank you, Prasanna. Thanks for joining us. We are very happy that you could join us. Nimgu Namaskara. Lorena is saying, I feel that if we don't add bhakti in every aspect of life, we are missing the full purpose of the whole thing. I agree. Bhakti is very important. In other words, when we talk about karma yoga, we talk about doing everything in service of God, right? When we talk about jnana yoga, we said that that leads to bhakti anyway, more love of God, right? If you don't want to build up karma so that you keep on being born and dying, this whole birth-death cycle, you somehow need to find a way to break it. How is that done? Through the grace of God. How is that achieved? Through bhakti. So here, Mirabai and Krishnadas, Guruji's song, Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, chant the name divine, be calm, sing the name with all thy prem. Exactly right. All thy prem is that, all thy love, okay, all thy devotion, devotional love. Absolutely right. So thank you for bringing that up. So I think those are the end of comments. So I want to thank every one of you for coming here and being part of this. And so what I'll do is we'll wrap up now with Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva. And we always do this prayer to say that everything that we do through mind, body, intellect, through our own nature, etc., we always do this at the end. We offer all that and more at God's feet. So that is Kayena Vacha Manasendriyarva. We do that prayer every time. I hope you noticed that. And we also pray to God for the well-being of everybody through the initial prayer, Sarve Shyam Swastir Bhavatu. But we also added at the very end, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. So we always, through this group, we pray for everyone's well-being, happiness, and completeness. Okay? And we also pray for the grace of God to shine upon all of us. Okay? So we'll wrap up now. Tvameva mata cha pita tvameva, tvameva bandhuscha sakha tvameva, tvameva vidya dravinam tvameva, tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. Kayena vacha manasendriyarva, buddhyatmana va prakriti swabhavat, karomi yadyat sakalam parasmai, Narayanaayeti samarpayami. Om asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om shanti shanti shanti. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Hari Om. Sadguru Maharaj ki jai, Syavar Ramachandra ki jai, Shri Krishna Bhagavan ki jai, Sab Sadhu Santan ki jai. Thanks again. Remember, next weekend we do not have, July 4th weekend, we do not have a live stream satsang. I am intending to be out of town that weekend. And Amma will be at Murli's house for 1 week. And so we will come back and do a live stream on the 10th evening, okay, July 10th evening. And that day we'll focus again on Panduranga for that Ashada Shuddha Ekadashi, the holiest day of Panduranga. I hope everybody can join us. Please let anybody you know who might be interested to also come in and join us. So there will be less talk, more bhajans, and more doing this Panduranga Ashtaka that we did today. We will do such types of things. And hopefully, if our cameras are all working and behaving properly, we may be able to add an arati at the end of that segment. We'll see how it goes. Okay. Thanks again. Namaste.